Hello and welcome into another week of Whether or Not. I'm your host, meteorologist Scott Sumner, sponsored by Ford. I got a very good guest today, someone that I've been wanting to get on actually for a little bit here. He is a Nova's storm chaser. Yes, indeed. I want to bring in at this moment in time Peter Forister. Peter, thank you for spending a couple of minutes of your day today. I always want to get a storm chaser on, and especially someone who's local, that's covered the Northern Virginia area, which is what NOVA stands for those who don't know, and really a lot of the up and down the East Coast. We'll get into that in just a minute. Well, welcome in, though.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, tell us, before we get into your field there, what you do, tell us a little bit about you and what attracted you to be a storm chaser in the first place.
Sure. So I'm a meteorologist and a geospatial analyst professionally. I graduated from Virginia Tech with my master's in geography back in 2021, I believe. And so now I work professionally. I do a lot of GIS, which is digital mapping. But I've always had this fascination with the weather and the natural world. I actually grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And part of my childhood was watching the thunderstorms go up over the Great Plains, watching the storms fire up over eastern Colorado and Kansas, and just watching the sunsets over the giant cumulonimbus. And I remember seeing supercells and giant hailstones growing up in Colorado. And then when I moved out to Virginia, I did college and everything here, and I just kind of started storm chasing. You know, whenever there was a storm around locally, I would go check it out, try to take some photos, and that just kind of grew my love for being out in the field and watching these thunderstorms, this amazing display of power in the sky. It just caught on, and I've kept doing it, and I really enjoy chasing in all of Virginia, all over the DMV in Northern Virginia, but also now expanded into other places like North Carolina, the whole East Coast, and then even out west on the Great Plains.
Interesting. Yeah, you have covered quite a bit of territory, to say the least, Peter. What have been, because you've covered a lot of ground there, can you relate to what of some of your most memorable moments being as a storm chaser?
Yeah, absolutely. The highlight of storm chasing is always the tornadoes that you get to see. So this is like what every storm chaser dreams of is seeing a big tornado or a highly visible tornado in an area that's not doing any damage. It's not hurting anybody. It's either out over a field or just in some trees or something like that. And they're really amazing to look at. It's hard to describe just how huge they are and how much power they have behind them. And being able to watch that is really a lot of fun. I remember there was a day in 2020, I was actually down in eastern North Carolina, and I got on a pretty small storm, actually. It wasn't super powerful, but I got right under it, and it was in perfect position. And I watched this beautiful cone tornado drop down out of the sky just in a field right in front of me. And it's like something you'd expect to see in Kansas, but it was just in North Carolina, just in the backwoods somewhere. And that was really a lot of fun. And then my favorite thing to chase around here in the Northern Virginia, Central Virginia area are these northwest flow supercells. And last year was really phenomenal for these supercells. Kind of when the mid-level winds are coming in from the northwest, they're crossing over the mountains, and they create this feature called the Lee Trough. And whenever storms can fire up on this Lee Trough, they oftentimes are extremely picturesque. So like a barber's pole sticking up 10 miles in the sky. And these barber's pole supercells, there was one day where I saw 4 or 5 of them in a single day last year in the middle of June. And those are just amazing to watch. And I'm able to chase them slowly, take photos, and really just enjoy the scene there.
Geez, my goodness. Is there anyone, Peter, that works with you, or are you doing all this on your own?
Sure. So from time to time, I do go with people. Like I have a whole group of really phenomenal people that I will work with from time to time. A lot of people from Virginia Tech, but also the storm chaser community at whole. It's a pretty tight knit community. A lot of people know each other well, and I'm able to go out and chase with them whenever the opportunity presents itself. So one of us will drive. One of us will be a navigator, and sometimes we'll have a third or fourth person in the back seat doing photography or forecasting, something along those lines. And it's really a lot of fun and very bonding to kind of chase in these groups together. So whenever I can, I'll go out with these guys, the trained professionals, and chase together. But a lot of the time, especially here in Virginia, I do go out alone. So kind of in an evening after work is done, or maybe on a weekend, kind of a thing when um, lots of stuff are going on for other people. So I'm able to just kind of get out. Maybe it's a 30-minute drive, maybe it's a 2-hour drive. And I just go chase on my own. I have enough experience that I'm able to kind of watch the storms and just drive along with them, and able to do that alone.
Very interesting. And on top of it all, outside of the website, which you publish, and we're going to see some photos here of your work in just a moment. But have you ever had photos published of any of your work? I mean, professionally published, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a lot of video work actually. So I will take B-roll video clips of the storms, and that can include either just the storm, what it looks like from a distance, maybe some lightning shots, maybe some cloud shots, but then also like in the heart of the storm, I'll be shooting video of wind or hail as it's falling, and I collect all of that video footage, and put it together in B-roll packages, and I sell those B-roll packages. So this is how I kind of earn cash to support the storm chasing and support the gear and training that needs to go with it. I'm able to sell to big news outlets, which is really phenomenal. So my work has been on places like the Weather Channel and CNN, Fox, NBC News. All this stuff is where my storm video often ends up. And sometimes when there are really remarkable events like the tornadoes or the really big impactful storms, I'm thinking like the derecho kind of stuff. My photos have been featured in publications like the Washington Post and Forbes magazine and the big publications like that. So I have a really good relationship with a lot of media outlets, and that's something that I absolutely love to work on those relationships and know the media folks. And it's kind of a two-way relationship, right? So they're able to use my work, help me earn a little bit of money, and push that out to the public. And in turn, I'm providing the information as quickly as I can to say, hey, this is where the storm is. Might be what the storm is doing, and I'm able to provide that information to the media outlets so that they can better inform the public about what's going on.
All right, we're going to take now a little look, a live look in here. So if my director there, Marcus, you can pop in links one here behind me. We're going to show you, okay, this is just some video, some animation. Really cool downdraft and everything, rain shield during the afternoon. Very, very cool stuff. But I want to actually go a little further here. This was on your website. It still is, actually. Culpeper Tornado. Talk a little bit about this. I've got 3 different photos from this. And how did all this come about? Do you recall?
Sure. So this was a day, I think it was in 2019. A big supercell thunderstorm kind of formed up over Culpeper, and this was the Lee Trough northwest flow setup that I was kind of talking about. So just a storm that popped up like right at 5 o'clock in the evening, right at that sweet spot where we kind of expect the big storms to go up. And this supercell was almost stationary. It almost didn't move over the town of Culpeper. And I was able to sit in this big wide open field just to the east of town and just watch this storm spin. And that was beautiful. That was a really pretty one. Yeah, this is another shot of that same storm a little bit later. And just watching it from the side of the highway as it spun around, and there were a couple funnel clouds with this storm as well.
Which is, so you're on top of the car, is that correct? Is that you?
That's my friend. I was actually the one who was shooting the photo, and my friend hopped up on the car to get a better look over the gas station and trees there.
That's very cool. So now we're going to move from this one, the Culpeper tornado. What a great shot you've got here of some lightning within the storm. I mean, look at that beauty.
Yeah, so this was a shot from my drone, and I take a drone storm chasing quite a bit, especially here in the mid-Atlantic, because of the trees. There are so many trees, and it's really difficult to get a view of the storm. So I send the drone straight up, and I'm able to just hit record, hit the video button, and watch as the storm develops in front of me. And this was a frame from one of those videos. I'm watching this massive shelf cloud come off the Blue Ridge Mountains, and you can see that Shenandoah National Park in the background, the Blue Ridge Mountains. And I caught that fantastic frame of this lightning bolts hitting the mountains and the big shelf cloud, and you can see the microburst or downburst just to the left there in the big rain core.
Yeah, right here is what Peter is talking about. Gorgeous, gorgeous shot. And now we have this interesting one. I don't see any lightning associated with it, but certainly some rain in here, right, Peter?
Yeah, this is more of a linear storm system. So instead of a supercell, which will kind of spin, and that's the kind of storm that will produce a tornado, this is actually outflow. So it's straight line winds. The whole storm is kind of lined up. And I'm sitting, I think this was in the Shenandoah Valley. I was sitting in front of the storm, watching as it kind of passed in front of me. Just this big wall of rain. I think it made for a really cool perspective, and the colors were just beautiful that evening.
Yeah, I mean it's invigorating. I gotta say, enthralling to actually get out and do this. And speaking of supercell, we're talking about a major supercell thunderstorm here. Do you recall when you took this one?
Yeah, I think this was 2021, if I remember correctly. But what was really unique about that storm, number one, it happened in the Shenandoah Valley, and there are actually big mountains. You can see the mountains off to the left. And a lot of time people say, hey, the mountains protect me from the storms, or there's never going to be a tornado here. Well, this storm was proof that they can. These spinning storms can happen in the mountains. And this was just amazing. You can see the entire storm. You can see the anvil up on the very top, and then the big cumuliform updraft, and then right at the very bottom, it's almost this mothership shape with the circular look of the bottom of the mesocyclone there, and then a wall cloud at the very bottom that was spinning just like a top, spinning really fast. And it was right at sunset, so everything was golden with the core and the clouds all lit up. So that was really a remarkable day.
Absolutely, yeah. It does look like a little bit like a UFO, doesn't it? Boy, a little futuristic there. Pretty cool stuff. All right. With this in mind, though, in all seriousness, the storm chaser has died. It's Tim Samaras, if you recall, a very famous, well-known storm chaser. He died in 2013, doing what he loves to do and what you do. Has fear ever crept into your mind when covering a severe event? And what has been your most harrowing moment, would you say?
Yeah, there's a lot of respect that you have to carry for these storms that we chase, because they are like the wild side of nature, right? So they're very, very powerful, and something like a tree coming down, or even a simple, like maybe you slip on the road in heavy rainfall kind of a thing, can be really quite dangerous. And then there's the upper echelon of the strongest storms, which is what killed Tim Samaras and his team. Unfortunately, several storm chasers died that day, and they were hit by this really violent tornado that was over 2.5 miles wide, and winds, I think, measured over 300 miles an hour. So just like the most extreme weather on Earth. And you have to carry a great amount of respect and keep your distance and that kind of approach to it. And a lot of lessons were learned on that day. So for me personally, yeah, it's absolutely something. And this is why we have to go through very careful training as meteorologists and as storm chasers. There's a certain way that you approach storms. You don't just wildly go out and drive around hoping that you'll be in the right place. No, there's a very specific strategy, and there's a very specific way to navigate around the storm, so that number one, you can be safe. That's the primary objective, is to stay safe around the storms, but then also be in the correct place to have those viewing conditions you need for the photos. So by experience, back in 2019, there was a big tornado outbreak here in Virginia, and it actually produced an EF3 tornado down in Franklin County, which is near Roanoke. And I was on that storm. I was watching the storm carefully. I missed the big tornado. I got there a little bit late. And honestly, I was looking at the radar. I was looking at the data on my phone and tracking it, trying to get all fancy and position myself in front of the storm based off the radar data. But the radar data was incomplete. It did not tell me how strongly the storm was rotating, because it was blocked by the mountain's terrain. And so I didn't have a good picture, and I lost situational awareness. I lost track of what was actually happening in the storm above me. And the storm produced another tornado. there was a second tornado that it produced, and it happened right beside me. And I was really caught off guard. So the tornado passed probably about 300 or 400 feet behind me.
Woo.
And I really only had a few seconds to react. I got down in my safe position, and waited for it to pass. But that was definitely a scary experience. I had been focusing too much on my data, my fancy applications, and had lost awareness of the storm around me. So lesson was learned. I'm very fortunate, very grateful to not have been hit by that tornado.
Oh, absolutely.
And now I'm able to approach it a little bit differently. I've learned from that.
You know, I had to bring this question up because I guess to a degree there is some truth to it, but the second part of it is what you should be doing. But some storm chasers do this just for the thrill, and that could be an issue while others are pursuing it for science. Why do you find yourself storm chasing?
Sure. And I'll be the first to admit it is exciting to be in these storms. It is really a lot of fun. There's a lot of adrenaline involved. Like, it's a really cool thing to be a part of and to do if you can do it safely and well. But that is not the primary reason that I chase. I actually don't do it for science either. Although I am a meteorologist, there are specific teams that go out with highly calibrated, highly carefully trained instruments who are able to take those measurements. And that's like the Doppler on wheels and the researchers from the Storm Prediction Center. And those are the people who I trust with the science, and I think they're doing really good work. And my information can be helpful to media, but it's not really contributing to science. So really why I go out is because, honestly, I think it's just beautiful. I love the sky. I love the clouds, and there's nothing more spectacular to me than the show of a massive thunderstorm in the evening with lightning and hail and the deep rumble of thunder. And that's just spectacular to me. And really over the last few years, I've kind of adopted my camera. Like, I've become a photographer, and I really love capturing those moments with my camera and with the video. So my primary reason for storm chasing is just photography. I want to capture that moment. I want to share it with other people. And that really motivates me to get out and chase the storms.
Yeah, you mentioned before you had a drone, and they used the drone for one of those photos that we just showed here a few minutes ago. Collecting all this information, you've been doing this for a while now, Peter. You probably have enough information. Have you ever thought about writing a book based on some of your intriguing storm chasing moments, like the one you just told us for a few moments? I mean, that would be fascinating. You put a collective work of that together.
I have not specifically thought about a book. I have a couple of friends who have written phenomenal books about their storm chasing experiences. I would say that currently I put a lot of my thoughts on social media. So I have a Twitter account and a Facebook account, and even a blog that I'll put on my website sometimes to kind of walk through like the experiences that I've had, and I can talk about the forecast, and I can talk about where things may have went wrong, or what things I'm able to work on, and share my photos. And that's really what I focused on. I don't know, maybe in a few years I can start thinking about a book, but in the meantime I'm just okay with sharing things on the blog and social media.
All right, good stuff, Peter. Well, thank you. You just mentioned you have Twitter and social. Plug those for us here, would you?
Sure. So my Twitter account is @forecaster25 on Twitter, or just under my name, Peter Forister. I also have a couple of Facebook pages. My photography page, where I'll post storm photography and a lot of my a lot of other nature stuff, so including mountains and astrophotography stuff. That's under my name as well, just Peter Forister Photography on Facebook. And then my dedicated storm chasing page is Nova Storm Chasing, because I was able to start the storm chasing stuff in Nova, and I'm able to share the things that I see in Virginia on there. So yeah, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all under my name, Peter Forister.
One last question, I'll let you go. It was interesting what happened. We had storms just on Monday. We're supposed to have storms on Monday. What were your thoughts on that whole situation?
Yeah, that was a really tricky forecast. The storms on Monday, we were forecasted to have a whole bunch of instability, a really unstable atmosphere. And then a bunch of clouds came through in the morning, like right around lunchtime, that really just kind of suppressed that instability. That made things really stable and just not conducive for storm development. So I was able to get south. I was able to chase southern Virginia, even a little bit into North Carolina, and I saw some severe weather down there. But really, those clouds, which were really tricky to forecast ahead of time, kind of put a damper on the entire day.
Mm. Yeah, that's unfortunate too, you know. And sometimes I lived in the South and down in Georgia. Sometimes if you had a major MCC move through, it would sometimes rob some energy from your initial data that is being put out there. And I saw something online that also came into fruition a little bit, didn't it? Between the clouds and that. So, you know, we didn't really get too much, as you said. It was kind of a big scratch your head type of day on that one. All right. Hey, Peter, thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your busy day and, of course, your time here and sharing your stories. And I hope folks get out and about. Check out your website. Check out Peter's website. Check out his Twitter page and all the good social media stuff. And certainly we'll have to do this interview down the road again. And I'm sure you'll have some new experience and we'll get some new photos here.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. You got it, Peter. Thank you. That is Storm Chaser Peter Forister. He's got a website. It's Nova Storm Chasing. Great stuff. You can see stuff like this on his website. So obviously you want to do it when you're, you know, in a safe place, of course. As always, God bless. Be well. Stay safe. As always, I'm your host, meteorologist Scott Sumner, and we'll see you next week.